our next organizer, Mr. Jailab Rai of the Forest Action in Nepal, was the Worldwide Views Organizer in Nepal. Mr. Rai.
Thank you, Chair, the speaker of this event, and delegates from different countries, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, well, it was quite interesting and quite a kind of platform for learning for us to organize WWViews in Nepal. The first thing, let me share a couple of things from our perspective as organizers of the WWViews. The first thing, what we joined was quite interesting because of the nature that we work as an organization and the policy of the country in basically environment, natural resource, forestry was a basic thing that we joined in this event. We basically support the policy making processes in Nepal. We contribute in the policy making process. So we felt it is important platform to bring people's voices and their opinions in the biodiversity conservation issues of the nation and the policy platform. So that's why we joined in this event. Let me talk about the next, how we participated or how we met these general citizens participated in this event. It was quite interesting and quite challenging for us to make people participated. That means we had to make the representation of all sections of the people. For example, Nepal, by geographical landscape, it is diverse in its ecology. For example, mountain, hill, tarai. So first we prepared list more than 300 general citizens that represent the diversities like ecological regions, gender, caste, ethnicity, religion, occupation, education, and some of the these variables we took into the considerations so that the general citizens represent all of these diversities and federations. And then after that, so how we prepared this 300 participants or the potential participants was from the snowball sampling, and then we made a random sampling of them all, and then we made communications more than 130 individuals, and finally we became able to make 104 general citizens representing the diversities in this event. So let me share about some of the findings that may be very interesting for us from our perspectives in the biodiversity conservation. Let me share a couple of results. In that event, we had 18 questions that has to be discussed, and that has to be made the participants to vote their own in the event. So of them, let me share a couple of questions, how the results we achieved out of these discussions and opinions of the general citizens. First, let me talk about the question number 3. The question was about the who will be seriously affected by the loss of the biodiversity across the world. The results are quite interesting. More than 91% of the participants responded that it will affect the whole people of the world. I mean, people are not concerned about their family, their society, and their community. They are concerned about the whole, the global people, global citizens. So this is our perspectives of the understanding out of this event. Similarly, let me share about the next question, question number 7. It was a question about, let me read the question, which general strategy do you think is most promising in matching the future demands for food with the aim to protect biodiversity? The results are quite interesting for us. For example, more than 69% of the participants responded that it should be addressed with the intensifying of the available agricultural areas rather than converting the open spaces, protected areas, and other places into the agricultural land. It means people are quite conscious about the protected areas, the biodiversities, the potentiality of the biodiversities in the open spaces, protected areas, or whatsoever. Similarly, let me say about the next questions. Question number 10. It was about, let me read the questions, and it makes sense for all of us. Should a new international agreement be made to establish more marine protected areas in the high sea? Yes, the result was quite interesting. More than 99% of the participants responded that yes, it should be. I mean, people are very much conscious about the conservation. That means how the biodiversity can be conserved, biodiversity can be protected It's very quite interesting. But it doesn't mean that people are just going in the favor of protecting the biodiversity. We should be conscious of how it should be managed, it should be conserved. What stake people can demand for this? So let me share the next questions and its results. The question number 11 was about who should supply financial resources for biodiversity protection in developing countries. The responses was more than 54% of the participants responded that both industrialized and developing countries should be obliged to pay, but industrialized countries should pay the main part. It means people are very much conscious of that we have a role to contribute in the biodiversity conservation, but they are at the same time conscious about how biodiversity is losing across the world. Their consciousness, of course, is because of the industrializations and so many kinds of globalizations kinds of things. This is our perceptions of these votes out of the participants. Now, out of these events, out of these results, there are some of our learnings. Let me share the first learning. The interesting thing is that the citizens are in the favor of biodiversity conservation, but at the same time, for example, they are even in the favor of expanding the protected areas, because I haven't shared all of the results of the questions and that we have discussed in the event, but people have response that we can expand the protected areas for the biodiversity conservation. But at the same time, what the response remained was that they are interested to have a share of the participation in the management, share of the benefits out of the biodiversity conservation. It means we, the policymakers, we, the researchers, we, all stakeholders should be very conscious about how the benefits can reach to the local communities. So it doesn't mean that only expansions of the protected areas, also about the equitable benefit sharing out of this biodiversity conservation. So as an experience, it was quite interesting for us that it was quite very challenging for us to organize and cast the opinions and the views of the general citizens, because the participation was diverse, very literate. Even there were the researchers, lecturers, professors, even in the very illiterate peoples. By occupations, very high industrial owners or different factory owners, and the very general farmers. That means that was a great challenge for us to capture the opinions, ideas, views of the general citizens in a single platform. So it was one challenging for us to organize. Similarly, it is challenging for us again to make these voices reach to the policy-making bodies, as the politics, as the policy-making processes of the country is very complex. Even we also cannot have access about information about how policy can take place, policy can be made in the national level or in the policy-making level bodies. So it's very challenging for us to make these voices reach to the policy-making bodies. So we expect something out of this event. The first thing that we expect is the general citizens' voice should be reached and recognized in the policy-making processes. It should be well interpreted in the policy-making bodies, because people saying a simple voice does not give a sense of what people is saying, because it should be interpreted in what context they are saying that things, in what context they are viewing that ideas. So it's very challenging, and it should be recognized and interpreted in a way that people what they want to say. Similarly, next expectation that we do have as organizers of this event is that these of the voices should be recognized, respected, and implemented or reflected in the policies of the national policies as well as the international policy making bodies. And I hope these of the voices will be heard in the international conference like in CBD COP here, and perhaps we will be trying our best to lobby, advocate with the policy making bodies in the nation as well. Thank you.